Hi guys, today we're going to talk about the wise men that sought Jesus and some lessons that we can learn from this portion of the Bible, which is found in Matthew 2, 1 through 12, and I'm reading from the ESV. Now, after Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea in the days of Herod the king, behold, wise men from the east came to Jerusalem, saying, "Where is he who has been born King of the Jews? For we saw his star when it rose, and have come to worship him." When Herod the king heard this, he was troubled, and all Jerusalem with him. And assembling all the chief priests and scribes of the people, he inquired of them where the Christ was to be born. They told him, "In Bethlehem of Judea, for so it is written by the prophet, and you, O Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are by no means least among the rulers of Judah, for from you shall come a ruler who will shepherd my people Israel." Then Herod summoned the wise men secretly and ascertained from them what time the star had appeared. And he sent them to Bethlehem, saying, "Go and search diligently for the child, and when you have found him, bring me word, that I too may come and worship him." After listening to the king, they went on their way, and behold, the star that they had seen when it rose went before them until it came to rest over the place where the child was. When they saw the star, they rejoiced exceedingly with great joy. And going into the house, they saw the child with Mary, his mother, and they fell down and worshipped him. Then, opening their treasures, they offered him gifts, gold and frankincense and myrrh. And being warned in a dream not to return to Herod, they departed to their own country by another way. So, first of all, I would like to talk about some fun facts. So we hear in this portion of the Bible that there is evidence for why Jesus is the prophesied Messiah. We remember that we talked about how God had made a covenant with King David, that it was going to be through King David's line that this Messiah was going to come. And also we hear here that Jesus was born in King David's city, Bethlehem of Judea, from the tribe of Judah, which is where the kings were born. And also we hear about another prophecy. There was this like star sign that God provided to give evidence for why Jesus is this promised Messiah. And we hear about this prophecy in Numbers 24:17, which says, "I see him, but not now. I behold him, but not near. A star shall come out of Jacob, and a scepter shall rise out of Israel. It shall crush the forehead of Moab and break down all the sons of Sheth." Something else, the wise men, they were not kings, contrary to popular belief. Their names also actually come from the church tradition. Number of men as well, it's commonly believed that there were 3 wise men, but actually we don't really know for sure how many. All we know is that there were 3 gifts. And it actually could have been a large group of attendants and guards for this long journey that could have taken them several weeks, possibly even 40 days. So these wise men, if they weren't kings, what were they? Why did they have that title of wise men? So they used to call wise men priests and experts in mysteries in Persia and Babylon. But by this time, it applied to a wide range of people who practiced astrology, dream interpretation, study of sacred writings, the pursuit of wisdom, and even magic. And they might have been familiar with Old Testament prophecy through their interaction with the Jews in Babylon, and as well as Balaam's prophecy, which we just read. They probably understood this because the Jews, they understood this prophecy that it was actually pointing to this future messianic deliverer And the wise men, actually, they arrived possibly up to 2 years after Jesus' birth in the manger. As we read, it didn't talk about a manger, but it talked about the house where Jesus was at. So by that time, they were already in a house. And their worship of Jesus actually served to foreshadow the worship of Jesus by all the Gentile nations. So another thing is that when we compare the visit of the wise men to that visit of the shepherds, Jesus came to the Jew first and then the Gentile. And also another thing we can see in this is that Jesus came to the poor first and then the rich. So let's talk about the gifts. Possibly the gifts were used to support the family in their flight to Egypt. Frankincense is used ceremonially for the only incense permitted on the altar. Myrrh is used in incense and perfume and as a stimulant tonic. So some believe that the symbolism behind these gifts, for example, was that gold was symbolic of royalty, incense, divinity, myrrh, death. But it's also possible that these wise men, they just gave these gifts unknowingly. And possibly the wise men, they went first to Jerusalem, assuming that the leaders of the Jews would be aware and excited about the birth of their Messiah. But they would come to find out that that wasn't the case, obviously. We hear about this king, Herod the king, or Herod the First, or Herod the Great. And he was actually appointed king of the Jews under the authority of Rome. And he ruled Israel and Judah from 37 to 4 BC. He ruled firmly and ruthlessly. He murdered his own wife and several of his sons and other relatives. Augustus, the Roman emperor, he said it was safer to be Herod's pig than Herod's son. He was a master builder who restored the temple in Jerusalem and built many theaters, cities, palaces, and fortresses. Also, he financed structures, including pagan temples, throughout the Roman Empire. And he was ultimately ravaged by disease, and he died in his palace at Jericho. His reign gives us a chronological marking point in history. So let's talk about the lessons that we can learn from the wise men and Herod. God gives us all an opportunity to seek Him. The Jews had prophecies, the wise men had a star, Herod had information of both. And what about us? Well, some of us are born into a believing family. Some of us go to church, have a Bible in our home. Some of us might be exposed to information about God through a Bible TV show, social media post or video, maybe a friend that is a believer or a coworker, maybe even a stranger, or nature itself serves to point our mind to ask these questions like, how did this all begin? How is this all sustained? So what's really important is what we do with this information. Do we pursue Jesus, or do we see him as a threat like Herod did and shut him out of our life? So there's one thing to have head knowledge of Jesus, but that's not enough. The wise men were inconvenienced in their search to worship Jesus, and so must we daily. We must inconvenience ourselves and make time to seek Jesus and to worship him. We need to build on the relationship that God has restored for us with him through Jesus' sacrifice. And I want to read in Spurgeon's words the following. The star was Christ's star itself, but it also led others to Christ. It did this very much because it moved in that direction. It is a sad thing when a preacher is like a signpost pointing the way but never following it on his own accord. Such were those chief priests at Jerusalem. They could tell where Christ was born, but they never went to worship him. They were indifferent altogether to him and to his birth. If we know about Jesus, let's not just be satisfied with this knowledge, but let's actually follow him.